Special Counsel Jack Smith delivering a message to the Supreme Court tonight: reject Trump's claim of absolute immunity. What he's saying is, and I quote here, a president's alleged criminal scheme to overturn an election and thwart the peaceful transfer of power to his successor should be the last place to recognize a novel form of absolute immunity from federal criminal law. That's not the only issue for Trump in the legal world, as you know. In fact, tomorrow, Trump is expected inside of a New York courtroom where a judge is expected to confirm a trial start date for Trump's hush money trial. That's the case where prosecutors allege a cover-up scheme by Trump to hide payments to adult film star and director Stormy Daniels. Also happening tomorrow, because, but wait, there's more, is Georgia. There's a hearing to determine if the DA in the case against Trump and other defendants, Fani Willis, should be disqualified from prosecuting because of an alleged relationship with one of the lead prosecutors. A hearing that could potentially leave the entire case or team in disarray. And then the day after, on Friday, you got a New York judge who will decide how much Trump will owe in his civil fraud trial. Joining me now, Elliot Williams and Christy Greenberg to try to unpack all of this. Elliot, let me begin with you, because just trying to preface all of these different actions and legal woes for Trump is really a trial in and of itself. But Smith is arguing to the Supreme Court that Trump cannot show what he calls a fair prospect of success. He says that a delay, quote, threatens to frustrate the public interest in a speedy and fair verdict. What do you make of that argument?
I make of that argument the same thing I made of the argument back in December, the first time Jack Smith made it. And that's what's most notable here. Everyone has known the position that the special counsel is going to take, that number one, the Supreme Court ought to not take it at all. And number two, if the Supreme Court takes it, they ought to resolve it very quickly. And I think, as you noted, Laura, Jack Smith made this argument back in December when he first asked the Supreme Court to take it. So it's a pretty straightforward argument. And looking at the lower court decision that's already been decided here, it seems that at some point, Donald Trump will be found to be not immune from prosecution. It's just a question of how long it will take to get there.
I mean, the Supreme Court was going to do what it wants to do, right, Chris? They're going to tell you what they want to take and not take. They may or may not give a reason. They might leave it with the lower court, the Court of Appeals, but they very may take it up. And of course, Jack Smith is wasting no time. It was due next week. He filed it today. But in New York tomorrow, I want to go and travel there with you for a second, because Trump is going to be in court for the hush money trial hearing. And that, frankly, I remember when Alvin Bragg was the first to bring the charges, and everyone wondered, would that be the first trial to actually go? And then everything else happened in between. This could now end up, in fact, being the first criminal trial that Trump faces. What are you expecting?
So I think in tomorrow's hearing, the judge is going to consider the motions that have been made pre-trial. Donald Trump has made a number of arguments. He argues that there's undue delay. Of course, he is in large part the reason for that delay, because he sued to block enforcement of subpoenas for his financial records. And also there were other investigations federally that paused the state investigation for a while. He's arguing that there are statute of limitations that apply, though they don't really. It was on hold while he was out of the state as president. He argues he was selectively prosecuted, but I don't think that will succeed either, because Michael Cohen was, in fact, prosecuted and convicted for this same conduct federally that Donald Trump is now being prosecuted for in the state. So there are a host of arguments here that the judge is expected to rule on tomorrow. And I do expect that he will not grant Donald Trump's motion to dismiss the indictment based on all of these arguments. And I do think he will set the trial date. The trial date is currently set for March 25th. He is expected to inquire about whether or not there are any conflicts with that date. There are none on the calendar currently. So I do think we'll see a trial starting March 25th.
I mean, in many ways, right, Elliot, that the date that Christy is talking about, the action and alleged conduct predates the other alleged conduct and all the other trials, right? So it would make sense, I guess, logistically, but we are not in a make sense necessarily sort of world sometimes these days. But Elliot, stay in New York with me, because on Friday, we're still in New York for the civil fraud trial against Trump. And that judge is expected to decide not whether he has committed some fraudulent behavior, that was a summary judgment motion, but how much Trump will have to pay. And it's potentially hundreds of millions of dollars. It doesn't end there. maybe even a possible ban on even doing business in the state he called home for so many years. How do you see it all playing out?
So the judge has to assess liability on a few counts, and of course, as you said there, Laura, damages. Now, the writings seem to be on the wall from the trial that it appeared that the judge was not persuaded by some of the arguments being made by the former president. Remember, it was not a jury trial; only the judge was hearing the evidence and law in the case. Number one, and number two, there were a number of instances where it was clear that the Trump team had just simply gotten under the judge's skin. And as we all know, having the three of us having appeared in front of courts before, the last thing you want to do is piss off the judge. And certainly the judge has to substantiate anything that he decides in the case. But close calls, he's not obligated to rule in the favor of a defendant that has insulted his staff or behaved in an improper manner in court. So I would assume that there would be pretty harsh penalties assessed against the president. We'll just have to see how the judge writes it up and how he defends ultimately the decision that he writes.
I mean, Christy, we were supposed to know about that ruling by the end of January. Obviously, it's no longer the end of January, right? The calendar is ticking on, and here we are, February 14th, going to have February 16th by this coming Friday. So we know it's taking some time, but let's go on this road trip still, okay? We're on this road. We're all over the United States. Now we're going to go to Georgia together right now. Because in Georgia, another case that has, all of the residue of all the Trump filings, Nathan Wade, who is the lead prosecutor in the case against Trump, where he'll be on the stand first, answering, by the way, what could be some very personal questions about his purported relationship with District Attorney Fani Willis. This will be live, unlike other courthouses we've seen. This will be actually able to be viewed and could be very frankly uncomfortable to watch, but what are they trying to get at in this trial? It's not the underlying facts of the case, right? It's something different.
Well, I think the defense is trying to do two things. One, they are trying to show that there was a conflict of interest between the DA, Fani Willis, and given her relationship with this lead prosecutor, Nathan Wade, in that she had a financial interest in hiring him and had some benefit in doing that. Now, Nathan Wade has filed an affidavit saying, no, yes, we took some trips together, but we split the finances evenly. So expect that there will be a lot of questioning about their finances and the trips that they took, and exactly what, if any, financial benefit Fani Willis derived from his employment with her office. I also expect there will be questioning about the timing of their relationship. He has said in his papers that he did not begin a relationship with her until after she was hired. The defense claims that they have a witness who will say the opposite and has information to that effect. So I think this is going to get messy. I think the judge is going to try and run a tight ship here, but expect this to be some Real Housewives territory that we may get into tomorrow.
Going to get messy, Christy? I got news for you. We're already there, right in the mess. Like it's a pigsty of things right now. Elliot, Christy, thank you both so much.